there's quite a lot of different use case where you can use it. And like one example with the that is normally people start is how can you turn that chatbot of yours into an actual shopping assistant, into something that actually supports your customer throughout the shopping journey. And we see that with ChatGPT, you probably seen it maybe in your behavior as well. You start searching differently. You assume that things are different. You assume that you go from this, I want to buy mobile phone. Now it's more like, I need a phone to my child that breaks everything. It's people want to communicate. People want to have assistance. Hence the whole shopping assistant. So how do we starting now looking into how our Lbot can be a bit more helpful based on all the data we already have. So this is nothing, that we need to do more. It's more like, okay, how can ChatGPT use the data we have already on the website better to provide more relevant content in the dialogue with the customer? And there you have both the efficiency part, and also that the customers who are then calling, who needs that people can actually focus on the cases that we cannot solve. But that the information, because that's normally the pain in the ass. You try to go on the website to find what is the opening hours of this store, or how can I keep my AirPods clean? You need the help. It's here. So instead of customer, like, how can you make life a bit less difficult? And that is kind of the traditional way of starting. And main things where people normally start with AI is with content, right? Looking into how can creating articles, creating exciting content, helping with search optimization, looking into how you can utilize the articles you have, the data you have on them to create new, better content that is more engaging with the customer. So I think for us, if you look at the brand and digital where I'm working, different use cases where AI is already now integrated, is really into looking into, okay, both operational side, we're using Copilot, we have the Bibles for all the content. It helps us to, utilize, have less manual tasks, basically. Having like copy bank on all the advertising, right? Things that you normally have to do with Excel and move things around. AI is helping to make it more effective. But then it's very important when you talk about content to make sure that the source is clear, and that you have to make sure that you're doing again, you're bringing AI in a way that it's clear for the consumer that, okay, you have been utilizing AI here for product information, for example, that is coming. The AI has created this text so that also no one is fooled and the information is correct. Because, of course, there still can be a lot of faults with AI-generated content, and the information can sometimes be not spot on. So extremely important that people are also aware what is human-generated content, what is AI-generated content, and how do you use. So transparency is like with data. You need to use with respect, and you need to make sure that your customers always know, okay, where it's relevant to know that, okay, here we are utilizing the AI parts, and here it's more human.
So this content that is generated, I mean, it came to my mind. You must also be having like a quality process internally, right? Like, okay, this is generated by AI. How do I ensure that this is, let's say, I'm meeting at least 90% or 95% or some percentage accuracy target that you might have for the content that is generated? Is this a process that you should be aware of in advance, or when you're doing, what I mean to say is when you do the proof of concept, at that point of time, you would be knowing about, let's say, one particular category, what I need to check, these are the checks that I need to do. Now you have a process established. So the quality process then, how does that vary? Does that also vary by categories, or will you be able to apply, let's say, similarly from a content perspective only, not the recommendations, because that, of course, will be vary by category?
Yes, I think here it's also very, very important to not jump ahead of the curve, because it
Okay.
can be like that you start looking into all the things that AI can do to
Hmm.
the all the creative models you have, both for pictures, content creation,
Yeah.
graphics, and you might say, "Oh, do we need all these resources in house?"
Hmm.
We can save so much. We can be so much more efficient if we just have AI. But you have to stop yourself and understand that no,
Hmm.
actually, you need people, and there is a very long process, like you say, in terms of getting the balance right.
Yes.
And what I say is that we still need all the resources we have in the content team. They're still extremely relevant, because what they then can focus on is to make sure to support us with the A/B testing, what content actually drives value, thinking about
Hmm.
what that is missing, looking into the how can we actually make more value, where the content is relevant, not, and have that strategic thinking, because before they might not have had as much time to actually
Hmm.
focus on the data on that side. You kind of you just have to produce. But here is more quality control, especially in the languages. We have 4 markets, and Finnish
Yeah.
is pretty difficult, except if you are born there, like lucky me, then it's quite easy. But still, you have to have people checking that does it make sense, that the translations are correct, that everything is right, and also then monitor how that content is performing and what does it
Yeah.
mean, gathering those insights. So yes, we have both the process, and still I would say it's 80-85% the content is still even more created by people. But this
Oh.
is more like now utilization, how it starts to
Hmm.
move, that how can we utilize and we freshen up the content we have, instead of using a lot of time, can you use AI to speed up the processes?
You mentioned that this is a process, right? I mean, you don't start with everything at once, I guess,
No.
but you start somewhere. You have to start with your first AI steps, and
Yes.
I would imagine that this is pretty, could be pretty complicated or pretty daunting for someone who's not
Yes.
familiar with that. So maybe if you think back when you
Mm.
guys at AdJob started, so what did you do? What was the first step? And
Hmm.
did it get easier for you because you said, well, we already know a little bit, or do you say, well, somehow it still stays on a high
Mm.
level, and we really have to make sure that we focus on the right things,
Mm.
on the right questions to ask?
I think this is the thing. I don't think we are there yet, by no means.
No.
Our owners, Currys, have started very systematically looking into AI, partnering up now with Microsoft and Accenture, making 80 use cases of most importance where AI can help the business. So already from the strategical level, they have
Hmm.
really looked into, okay, where AI could bring most value to us.
Mm-hmm.
For Elshep side, we kind of have gone from just working with it, having a strategic focus and having AI part of your roadmap is very, very important, so that people understand that it really is here. It's something
Yeah.
that we will be focusing on, and it's not just random hype thing that an IT in the cellar can focus on their free time. But this is how can we actually use it. So I would say in the Ecom team, it was very natural that we start exploring more with recommendation, because we had already been using machine learning and algorithms
Hmm.
in our A/B testing. So that was a very natural stage. So I don't think we never like sat down and say, "Ooh, now we're going to use AI." It was more like, "Okay, now we can use these algorithms that
Yeah.
are thinking more out of their box, outside of the dark box that we cannot go in. Shall we try? Shall we try?" And as we are,
Hmm.
ABT is also one of our mottos, always be testing. So we just tested.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Okay.
very
Hmm.
natural for us. And when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to content, that is very like experimenting to find
Yeah.
out where can we do. We had co-pilot piloting here in the HQ. Everyone could go and try how co-pilot can help your everyday life, and it was very, very. We were sharing learnings, and I think that was also really great, because maybe in some companies you kind of just have co-pilot in your computer, but
Hmm.
no one really tells you that, hey, this is how I'm using it, or this is how this has helped with my everyday life. How can you
Yeah.
actually educate each other in the team and engage people to use it? Because all
Mm-hmm.
the habits die screaming, they say, and it's very, very difficult for people to change, because you
Yeah.
do need to spend some time to learn the new ways on working? Do you need to learn how, for example, Copilot, before it can help you, you need to understand, okay, how can I get that transcript out and the recording out? And how can I get from here a Word document written from the discussion that we just had? So you have to spend time to free up time. And you know how it is. There's never time. There is never time. So how can you help your organization in that change process? Make it less, ooh, now AI is coming, to more, how can it help you today? Showing examples, have a bit of leading by example, and sharing. Sharing is caring. So when you have had a good hack, look, I saved now, there I got a presentation of 85 pages, and AI translated for 2 slides that I needed to remember, and I nailed this meeting.
Yeah.
Then you're like, wow, how did you do that?
Yes.
And then you start seeing change happen, because people, we are habit creatures. So to change that, you need to really provide value. And I think that's the topic, that's the core of the whole discussion we're having today, is the value what you get from AI, from the data, and how technology can help us to actually bring, like they say, bring more humanity into the discussions also online. And I really like that, actually, that angle.
I mean, totally agreed with you, because this is exactly what was going on in my head, that, okay, this is a use case, but I couldn't imagine the number of challenges that you must have faced while really implementing some of the steps that you are just speaking about. And then you already answered that, okay, as long as you're showing value, not only to your customers externally, but also internally, you will be able to succeed. And then also the other thing that I take away from everything that you said is that it is like a constant learning loop. So you can't stop anywhere. It's like constantly going in a loop. Implement something, do the testing, see what works, whatever worked to go on, and then take the feedback, try to improve the exact same model. And it's never ending then.
Never. And I think main thing is to try to get inspired by others. Of course, you need to gain inspiration, but every business still from inside is different. So you cannot be like, okay, you just start from this use case. No, just one thing that everyone can start with, that I do recommend, is getting your data in order. I think that's for everyone. But then what you do with it, and what kind of data you have that brings value, and where do you want to use AI first? What makes sense to you? That depends completely. What industry you are in, what is your structure, where is your biggest pain points, where do you now have those pitfalls where AI could bring most value? And you start.
I have actually one question about data, and I'm sorry, this is like the first step that we spoke about. Let's say if I, as a retailer, don't have my data sorted, right? I mean, yes, there could be ways that I could start sorting out my data, but what role would an external data then play in that entire process? Because I can, let me give you an example. Let's talk about consumer segmentation. If I have just the consumer profiles from the shopping behavior, let's say in my stores or in my platform, then I have certain information. What role would external data play in it if I don't want to just rely on my internal, let's say, not so clean data?
Yes. No, I think, now first party data will be everything, right? Especially when cookies are dying, will be very difficult to combine this. So players who have the data, especially, we are quite lucky as we have a really big customer club. So we actually have quite a lot of data with the consent from our users. And now we are more kind of, what can we give back? You're giving us this data, how can we help? But the data will external data will help a lot. We are buying data, for example, from Bisnode to get better segments. And the big question now is, how can we get the more segments into our own channel? Because in traditional way of thinking, you're utilizing segments and data for marketing to more paid. And how do you build those audiences outside? But now we are kind of looking in. How can we utilize that data in-house? How can we use those segments in our own channels? both online, but also in our CRM. So it's, I think it's the mix of what do you need to know? And I always say that it's both about respect for the customer, that you should not ask things that you don't need. So you have to really understand what actually is bringing, again, for that customer, what do you need to know in order to provide that better experience? And do not ask, you know those big forms. If someone asks you to join, for example, customer club, and they're almost asking my shoe size, even though they're changing sunglasses. And I'm like, why do you ask that? That is clearly not relevant. So be respectful for your customer. Only ask data that would provide you enough to provide them a better experience. And then you structure it. And of course, there's a hype about customer data platforms and how do you manage that. That I think is a wasp nest that I don't want to go in. But I think choice is yours, but you have to understand, how does that central data warehouse feed all your channels? I think there I kind of, everyone has their own strategy and opinion on this. But I think it's important that you at least have a way to get the data out, and that different departments can utilize that data with consent in a meaningful way, in-house and for marketing. That's all. And how do you then structure it? Yes, buying or building customer data platform is one way. Having a very good data structure in your, it doesn't have to get so expensive or so complex in the end. But the data has to be so available that anyone in an organization who has the rights to use it can and knows how to utilize it in their enhancing those experiences. I think that's important.
Okay, agreed. Wow. So that was already too much information, also too much data.
So you cannot stop. I should have stopped more classified data on this one as well.
No, completely
it's a lot.
fine.
It's a lot. But I think my kind of main motto, if someone has stayed with us for all this time and is thinking, okay, what do I really take with? I hope you take with that the progression over perfection, the last motto I will share. Because again, here, you should not go and try to save the whole world with artificial intelligence in time. Just try to kind of see, okay, try to test where it makes sense, what is easy, how do you get how you get your team to start understanding what this technology can do. So start being curious about it, and start, because I said in the beginning, AI is here. It is here. It's not new. It's just now in the new wrapping, because it's much smarter than it was before. But it is here to stay. So if you want to stay competitive and ahead, you have to, you cannot stand still. You have to move forward.
But that's quite interesting. Your motto, I think we should put it somewhere as a quote: progression more important than perfection.
Yes.
That's interesting. But I think we should now, we have enough and more recommendations, and also shared quite a lot of use cases, not just one, real use cases that, we are seeing happening at Elk Job, driven by you, of course, Julia. So really, really appreciate you bringing all the information, sharing it with our audience, taking the time, of course, to, get into the details, answer all our, I don't know, valid, irrelevant, if any, questions we might have asked, both Ines and I. So thank you once again for really taking the time and doing this podcast with us.
Thank you so much. It was amazing, and we learned so much. So we appreciate it a lot.
No, it was fantastic. And I think I always like to kind of wrap up things with 3 learning points. And here, the progression of perfection, that was clearly the one, but also that, what you cannot measure doesn't exist. So remember to start with data and ABT, always be testing. I think that is so important, that this is a journey. It never ends. And I'm very happy to be able to be part of the journey and get excited about it. It's not so scary. It's not so scary. If you use it correctly, the more you know about it, the less scary it becomes. So just jump in, learn, and have fun. when doing it. Because,
Sounds amazing.
Don't forget to have fun.
That's also very important here. It's
Yeah.
pretty exciting times to be alive.
Yes.